We are back almost to the end, but not quite, of Here's the Thing, the Peacemaker after show on Here's the Thing. And we're here to talk about episode, I believe, 7 of season 2, 7 of 8. So the penultimate episode, it was called like Keith in the Wind. We got quite a lot of reveals here, a lot of stuff I didn't expect to see. So it'll be a fun conversation for sure. And especially after last week where I think we were both kind of down on the episode. So I'm curious, how did you feel going into this? Did you get a chance to rewatch last week? Did you change how you felt? Were you excited going into this week? And how are you feeling now? We get a chance to finally talk about the penultimate episode of the season and maybe of the series. Who knows?
Yeah, I rewatched last episode and I did like it more. I liked it. The thing is, it was good. I think it might have just been that James Gunn had hyped it up so much as 6 and 8 are some of my favorite things I've ever directed. And I'm like, it's good, but it's not like, the craziest thing ever. And it's not just that there weren't crazy cameos. It just, they just hyped it up so much. And this episode's going to be interesting to talk about. I think the main thing for this one is that it does give us a great idea on how they are setting up Man of Tomorrow, because James Gunn has said the last few, we directly set up Man of Tomorrow. And that will be, I think, the biggest thing to talk about for this episode, at least towards the end.
Yeah, one of our criticisms last week was that the twist didn't really work because we hadn't spent a lot of time in this universe. And I feel like this episode almost reversed that on us, right? And the fact that we hadn't spent that much time here and we made some presumptions about characters based on what we'd seen, that almost like plays into the episode, right? It almost like uses our expectations against us to really play with how we thought these characters were going to play out and how we thought the storyline was going to go. Because I don't know about you, but this episode was not what I thought it was going to be. It went in ways I was not expecting, especially towards the end with a lot of the characters and the way it turned out. So it's going to be a great conversation. Yeah. And I'm much more positive on this overall than last week's, but I do have some quibbles. So it'll be a fun conversation for sure. Anything else you want to talk about before we get into the actual episode itself here?
Not really, because the things you mentioned are things I'm looking forward to talking about. So yeah, let's just get into it.
Yeah, I want to mention Michael has reviewed Good Boy, or at least he's going to be reviewing it soon, the dog horror movie that came out this week. That's been reviewed on the channel. We're starting a horror season, so we're going to be doing some shorts, some TikToks. We're going to be doing all kinds of stuff, trying to cover horror through as many means as we can, rankings and reviews, all that kind of stuff. So if you're a horror fan, we're going to be trying to do a lot of horror this month on the channel, but we're not quite there yet because we're still in Peacemaker zone. So let's start with where the episode starts with. Essentially where we left off last week, literally from the last line of last week, we're back there again. And they play on the fact that, like, how could Chris have not noticed that the American flag is a swastika? Because there's Mein Kampf on every single desk. There's literally a giant mural of Hitler. And he's like, how did I miss that? And I think it's a really, really funny joke because it absolutely subverted what I thought was a critique last week. It turned it into a total joke this week.
That was my thing, is the only way to get out of that criticism is if it was intentionally a joke, and it was, which I appreciated. Not all of James Gunn's humor works, but I think when he literally plays a joke on the audience like that, it does work a lot. And I really like this opening scene. A very short opening sequence, but just gets you into what the episode is going to be.
Yeah, we get right moving. As soon as this scene starts, it's not like, oh, we're undercover for a few scenes. They don't know it's us. It's like, oh, we're immediately sprinting out on the run. Here we go. They're just fighting Nazis as soon as the episode starts. They're what you presume are Nazis. And maybe it's more complicated than that, of course, which is what the episode ends up showing us. But yeah, it's interesting that they get this first scene and we're just like, oh, yeah, they're fighting Nazis. That's awesome. And they do the same thing later when somebody kills some Nazis and you're like, oh, it's awesome. He's killing Nazis. But then it turns out maybe all these people didn't necessarily deserve to be beat up. Maybe there's more complexity, it turns out, than we thought there was.
Yeah, I that's what surprised me, because you assume, oh, it's Nazi world, but maybe not exactly. And they do some interesting. There are some interesting comments made by a character towards the end where maybe it's not so different from your world. And do you stand up to every bad thing you see on your world?
I want to talk for a second about, we get a great scene here with the double vigilantes where he fills us in on who the Sons of Liberty are, how this universe came about. It was what we thought it was. The Nazis won World War II, essentially what it seems like took over the entire world, and now there's labor camps of any level of a minority, a sexual minority, a ethnic minority, a gender minority, anyone that's not, an Aryan, white, straight man or woman they can reproduce with. And I think that's, pretty telling that it's not just, black people in labor camps. It's essentially like they've taken away every single minority group and made it their supposedly perfect and clean world. I'm curious if we'll ever see these labor camps. It doesn't seem like we're going to spend much more time in this specific universe, so I don't know if we're going to see a lot more of how this universe actually operates, but we might. I'm curious if we get like any liberation of those camps or anything like that, or if we just are kind of left hanging on all of that.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that later, and if we will see this Earth again, because I definitely have some predictions with that.
What did you think of the double vigilantes? We got vigilantes hanging out, talking to each other. It seems like the vigilante of Earth X, or whatever they're going to call it here, is like a genuine hero. He's not like, half evil who goes around murdering people for fun, but sometimes it's for good. He seems like he's genuinely a straight up good person and is confused by like the totally morally gray elements of his counterpart. What do you think of that?
Yeah, he's actually maybe a much better person than our vigilante. I would have been interested, and maybe he went over. That didn't happen, but yeah, I really did love this scene. I honestly love everything with them interacting. When they're in the bush later, and he's like, "Oh no, but he didn't mean that." And that actor, I forget his name, but the actor who plays him is great. He's really great. I hope he gets some work from being in Peacemaker.
Because he's really impressing, especially in this season. He's done a lot, and like the scene where he had to cry and sell so much of the emotion, and now we're getting two vigilantes who are literally like the identical personas, but somehow they do feel differently, especially in this conversation. Like you can see in his performance who is who just from looking at them, of course. And once they put the mask on, it's a lot harder. But when they're sitting there like on the couch, you can tell which is which just from like the way he's lounging and the way he's standing. It's a really good performance. I really like this moment here where Peacemaker's father, whose name I cannot remember now off the top of my head, he calls Keith on the phone, and he's like, I'm kind of in the middle of something, and he's just in a mob chasing someone down the street, and he's just like, oh yeah, casually like, oh yeah, I'm in the middle of something. It was almost like a Dexter joke, He's like, I'm in the kill room, and he's like, oh, I'm stuck up at work, but he's like, oh yeah, I'm in the middle of something, just chasing down a black woman in the road, and I kind of wonder if this is something that happens like somewhat often, because they're shocked, but they're not like, oh, this never happens,
prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're all prepared. A blonde white woman just gets out of her car and starts chasing him. Oh, I accidentally said Keith, but it's Augie. The dad's name is Augie.
Augie, I'll write that down so I can remember.
Yeah. Augie or August, but yeah. I really liked that sequence. I was a fan of Judo Master coming in Savior, but I wished it would have been like actual like martial arts, because that's what he's a martial artist. It would have been nice. It was funny to see the way he did it, but it would have been really cool if he actually like used his martial arts to kill all them.
Yeah, that would have been fun. It was definitely a fun line. He showed up and he says, "Zippity zap, bitches," and he shocks them all. It was funny, and it plays on your expectations, because you're also like, yeah, he's electrocuting Nazis. But this was the point where I started thinking, I was like, how am I supposed to feel about him just killing all of these like random people? Like, sure, they're chasing this person down for violent ends, but like he just like killed all of these people. Am I supposed to feel good about that? And you kind of are, but I think by the end you're supposed to realize that like he's defending her, but you're leaping to conclusions of like, oh, these people deserve to be killed because of the universe they happen to be in, and maybe it's a lot more complicated than that. So this was a scene where I somewhat started to turn and be like, maybe these people are more complicated than we're giving them credit for, because that first scene is like, oh yeah, they're fighting the Nazis, and now I started thinking, maybe not. Did you think there was a Breaking Bad reference here?
With what?
There was a shot of this pink shoe in the pool, kind of burnt up, and it looked exactly like how they had those teases of 737 down over ABQ from Breaking Bad. It was almost like the same shot, and they played like a kind of Western infused little music cue over it too. So
Oh.
I was like, oh, I wonder if they're teasing Breaking Bad for a second.
Wait, is that going to be the cameo next episode? Walter White?
Walter White is Brainiac.
Oh, okay, but that would actually be incredible though.
That would be really fun.
Like, because there's been that Marvel rumor with Bryan Cranston. What if James Gunn gets him to be Brainiac? That'd be amazing.
Go ahead.
Let's get Bryan Cranston in the finale. But yeah.
Let's talk for right now about that Scrabble scene. You mentioned it earlier where they sit together, Adebayo and Judo Master sit together and they have a conversation about what this universe is actually like. And he's like, yeah, it's great if you're a white dude, but even if you're gay, any kind of minority, like either of us or anyone that we know is going to have a hard time here, right? And they kind of bond. These people who have been enemies throughout the entire season feel this moment of unity where they're both, the enemy, my enemy is my friend type of situation, and they start to bond and realize that, hey, we're not quite that different, you and I, and they play Scrabble, slightly spelled differently, but not quite like everything else in this universe. But it's a fun scene. It's cool that she defends Peacemaker here. He's like, oh, that Peacemaker guy's a real asshole. And she says, no, he's not. And she goes on his defense, and she goes on like this very James Gunn ramble of different songs she likes. That is a very James Gunn thing to do.
Yeah, I really like seeing him get to not just be joking, eating Cheetos, and actually get a scene where he's just like being serious and having a good character moment.
Yeah, we wonder why he was brought back at all this season, because he was seeming like he was literally killed off last season pretty cleanly, and you're like, okay, why is he back here now? And I feel like now we've seen why. It feels like if once James Gunn realized what he was going to do with this universe, maybe he went back and was like, you know what, I want to bring that guy back because I want to see his reaction to this universe. I don't necessarily have a huge cast list of non-white characters in this series, so maybe I should go back and grab somebody that I killed off maybe too soon because I want to see their reaction to this. But yeah, I really like this scene. I really would love to see him become part of their gang. He went back and joined Argus, at least at the end of the episode he did, but I think he's going to have a test of loyalty. Maybe he'll be the person on the inside. Maybe he'll be someone that is stuck between two worlds. Maybe he's the one that finally takes Frank Grillo down. He says, you're going too far, Rick Flag, and turns on him. That could be something. But it's very interesting that they've bonded, and now by the end of the episode, he is back on Argus's side, but for how long? And I also wanted to note here that it feels intentional that this universe is not super different from ours. Like, it's not like there's huge towering, like dystopian skyscrapers that reach to the sky and like huge 1984 style, like Hitler banners. Like there is the giant mural, but it's not like a crazy sci-fi dystopia. It's basically just our world, but Hitler now. It's basically us, but Nazis, right? And I feel like that's part of the statement, is that it's not this hugely impossibly different reality. It's just our reality, but a little bit different. And I think that makes this much more relatable. Yeah,
I'm curious to see if we do see more of this Earth, what the rest of the planet looks like.
Yeah, they mentioned the labor camps. We haven't seen labor camps. All we've seen is this beautiful glorified suburb, right? What does like an actual urban city look like in this environment? What does the rest of the country look like? I really love to see that. I hope we see more of this. We'll talk about it, you said, but I do hope we see more of it.
Yeah.
There's a really funny joke here where they're all kind of captured, and Economos is trying to say, oh, I don't know these guys. Peacemaker, Who is this guy? I'm unfamiliar with his costume. I'm unfamiliar with it. He's obviously not performing well under pressure. He sells this team out so quickly, and he's just like does not sell a lie. I think it's hilarious that this guy is just so out of his element. And some of these shows or movies, like a person who's a hacker or like a computer tech guy would get into a situation like this and somehow have like super spy skills and be able to like perform lie under pressure and fight the guy and kick him in the face and do a flip. I like that the characters in this show, especially Economos, is genuinely feels like just some nerdy dude who is not at all trained for this and totally out of his element. And as soon as he has any level of physical threat to his body at all, he's just like, I give up. I'm not fighting you. I give up.
I love that Eagly's just like, I do not care. He brings him a string. He's like, you brought me a string? What? No, get me a knife. And then he's like asking him to open the fridge.
I really love Eagly. I am hoping that we see a lot more of him. I was hoping for the multiverse of Eaglys. Maybe we'll get it next episode. I'm still waiting on the a multiple eagle scenario.
Yeah, and we can talk about when the cops are following them and they're gonna arrest them, and then Keith and Augie just show up and blow up all the cops. They're like, oh, but these are Nazis. They're okay with killing cops, I guess. Well, if it protects their portal, they are. And so they just kill all these cops, and they say, if you want to live, then you're gonna come with us. Possibly a Terminator reference, Robert. He was in Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go with them. And I don't know, are we at the point where we're going to talk about that scene where they're back at the house?
Well, let's talk first about there's a scene where like Keith and the father Augie finally reunite, and they have this conversation where you start to realize, I think, in this moment that Augie is a much better father than Peacemaker in our universe's father was. And at this point, he might still be a Nazi, but there's this complication of, oh, he seems like he's genuinely very caring. And, they talk about and hear how the Chris that they knew was kind of a fuck up, and he was kind of an asshole. And you wonder if maybe their Chris was like the Nazi of the trio, right? The other two are kind of more liberal, kind of more, fair-minded in some way or another, as much as you can be in a Nazi universe. And maybe Chris was like the MAGA guy, he was like the totally hardcore, no, the Nazis are right guy. And they maybe have thought about, I'm projecting a lot, but like the idea that these two guys are much more kind-hearted than we gave him credit for. And the Chris in that universe was the one who was kind of the asshole. So I really like this scene. And that's to me when we started getting the idea that the father was, maybe on the better side of reality than we thought he was.
Yeah, that was maybe my favorite part. That was maybe my favorite part of the episode. That the dad is genuinely like not a bad person. He loved his son. He's like, he has that speech. I don't know. Are we gonna should we jump to that scene now, because that directly goes with this?
One last scene we'll talk about before we get to that whole last sequence there is that the mustachioed man from Superman is here. We thought he might have shown up. I can't remember the character's name. It's some kind of comic book name, but he essentially is the magical portal device guy. He's a plot device man. He shows up with the big computer and he says, go here. And I was kind of hoping for a more complex cameo than just the guy that tells them to go here. But I think it definitely gives us a reference to maybe what we can expect to see in Superman 2 and how this character might show up again, how this multiversal stuff might tie in. But I thought it was kind of silly that we've had two major cameos so far, and both of them have just been guys that tell them to go to this place and do this thing. Like no one has really contributed much.
It's not a cameo. It has nothing to do with them. It's not a multiversal cameo or anything. Like people maybe were expecting. James Gunn says that there's a big cameo in the finale, so we'll see if that's just Lex Luthor's wife or something.
There was a nice cameo here, though. We had a cameo of the cop from last season. One of the two came back.
Yeah,
I was happy to see him back. I was hoping for a second we see his partner, and then I said, "Oh, you probably not. Probably not in this universe.
I don't think so.
I don't think she'll be on the police squad in this universe." But it was very cool to see that actor come back. He looked like he was he looked pretty healthy, to be honest. Look, he was in a better spot health-wise than he was last time we saw him. But yeah, I was happy to see that guy. Sad he got killed off.
Maybe she's leading the charge of the rebellion.
That would be really fun. I was thinking about that. If we do see the labor camps again, if we see more of the Sons of Liberty, maybe she'll be among them.
What if her and Amanda Waller are leading the charge?
That would be really fun. I would love to see some of the other characters we know from this universe. How are they adjusting to the Nazi reality? Who was on, the Sons of Liberty side, and who is on the loyalist side, and who is trying to ride the fence? It would be really fun to see more of those characters.
What if like Amanda Waller, in response to being locked up in a prison camp, she's gotten really buff, and now she's super muscular. Maybe she even has superpowers or something. But
maybe she has a squad of people who are very loyal to her and even willing to die for it.
Yeah.
A suicide squad, if you would.
Let's get into the meat of the episode, which is this whole scene in the house.
Yeah, this was a great scene. We can go through the whole thing for a second, but let me scroll down. Yeah, the cop comes back from the first season. He's ready to confront them, and then we get the full scale reveal that not only is Augie a pretty good guy, but he actually hates the Nazis, and for what he can do, he fights against them. He's not burning down, the Capitol or something, but he's, doing what he can do to fight violence in his individual life in a very harsh world. He takes personal offense to being called a Nazi even. So it seems like, sure, the Nazis are in charge of the world. That doesn't mean people all love them, So I think I really hope we see more of this universe because of that. But yeah, I was shocked to see right as he's giving this speech, Vigilante and the gang are coming in the window behind him, and you're like, oh no, 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 stop them, please stop them. And
Oh,
then
yeah,
they don't stop them.
I
And
was
then
really not a fan of this because I was so into that, and we were talking about what if he brings back Keith and is able to turn Keith. I was really hoping that that this would happen with Augie, that he would bring him back, but no. I guess they had to kill him so they can have a revenge storyline, and so we can have a. I guess it's kind of meant to be funny because I don't. I was not a big fan. Did you like that they killed the dad in the middle of that speech?
it was shocking, and I didn't like watching it, but it reminded me of watching the Red Wedding for the first time, or one of those truly devastating twists, because it's it's somewhat funny to see them sneaking up on the guy, but it's not funny when you're seeing the reaction to it, and it's when you realize how it's affecting Chris, and he's seeing his family get murdered right in front of him, and the fact that we spent the whole first 75% of the episode cheering on this political violence of them killing all these people, and then right before what should be the hell yeah, they killed the bad guys, they killed the trio, that should be like the best fight, right? And then it twists on us and we don't want to see them die, and as soon as we are on their side and feeling for them, Vigilante comes in and kills them. And it's a very, very interesting twist. And I think when you look at the world today, now people are so prone to violence, and saying, oh, I'm going to kill this person, I'm going to kill that person, and this is like telling you maybe you shouldn't jump to violence automatically. And maybe we talk about James Gunn's relationship with violence a lot, and how we question, the humor in all of his violence, and if he kind of recognizes the damage of violence. And this seems to be him recognizing the damage of violence, and how we leap to the fun of killing people in a show like this, but it's not satisfying when it happens. It actually really, really sucks when it happens. And the dad dying right when you like him is devastating. And you feel that because you're in Chris's shoes. You hate that when it happens, just like Chris does. And you're seeing your friends murder your brother right in front of you just because they jumped to a conclusion about who he was and what he thought. And sure, it's a revenge story for Keith, but I'm much more interested in how it affects Chris, because his life was just destroyed by his friends right in front of him. And how is he going to recover from that?
I'm not sure if he is going to recover from that. I think that when James Gunn said a few weeks ago on Threads, so like season 3, he's like, I won't go to that yet. You'll see what happens. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe Peacemaker does die in the finale.
And I could see him giving up the Peacemaker mantle. Maybe he says, I'm a piece of shit, or not even that. Maybe he just says, I'm damaging when I live like this. I have to live more peacefully. And I could see him just straight up giving up the mantle. But I actually really love this twist, and I'm happy we're on opposite sides, because you clearly were not happy with the way it turned out. But for me, I think we played right into the hands of James Gunn with this. We were spending the whole season being like, oh, it's going to be awesome when Peacemaker fights, the top trio and kills them. And then it's going to be so awesome next week when they come into this universe and they kill all the Nazis. That's going to be so much fun to see. And then this is almost like telling us to feel bad for wanting to see that. Like, Why do you want the catharsis of violence so badly? And the fact that we assume that about these people just from the little information we got, we're doing exactly what he thought we were going to do.
Yeah, I mean, James Gunn is definitely doing some sort of commentary here on political violence in general, and how maybe you shouldn't just want someone to die just because you don't like their views. Maybe they don't fully actually have those views.
Yeah, and if they were in a different universe where things were a different way, maybe they would have been a better person, and maybe they would have been a much, much worse person, right? Like in a non-Nazi reality, Augie is a really, really terrible father, an absolutely abusive pile of garbage who is hated by everyone around him and hates everything in all of his life. And in this universe, he's not that, right? But now he's dead.
Maybe it's that seeing all the evil actually made him have morals, and not directly in your face seeing all that evil. That's what made him go to that.
Yeah, the sense of like having power versus not having it can really change someone, right?
Yeah, and I also am not sure that if you did keep him alive and bring him over, would it be interesting to see him and Peacemaker together? Like,
I think I'm glad they kept Keith alive, because I'm happy one of the two can like see perhaps this other world and maybe see what it's like. I think it would have been very satisfying emotionally to see Peacemaker and his father get to have a positive relationship. It would have been nice to see them have a sit down conversation and essentially, have a catch field dreams style, and have a moment to actually bond. But I do think it's satisfying in a different way for them not to have that, right? It's satisfying in the Red Wedding way of like I wanted to see those characters not have that happen to them. I don't want to spoil Game of Thrones, even though it's been forever, but I didn't want to see that happen, but it happened, and I feel similarly here. I did not want to see these characters die, but it happened, and it sucked.
Do
Do you think that Keith is going to be the ultimate big bad of just this season, or do you think he might end up becoming like a Peacemaker big bad all the way to like a season 3 or something like that? Are we going to see this character like become a recurring bad guy, be like the ultimate nemesis? Is his Nazi brother?
He
Another
could
universe?
carry on to Peacemaker season 3, or he could carry on to Superman. I don't know.
Because they have talked about Superman being like really directly set up here, and
Yeah,
we haven't necessarily gotten that yet. We kind of have a little, but like I'm not sitting here like, oh man, now I know what's gonna happen. Now I know who's the villain or anything like that.
I don't think I know what's gonna happen, but I think there is a not weak possibility that Earth X does carry on in some capacity to Man of Tomorrow.
Yeah, I could see that being a villain of the movie. Like if Lex Luthor and Superman can team up against anything, maybe it's actual Nazis. Maybe Lex Luthor's like, hey, I'm bad, but I'm not literally Hitler, I'll fight against the Nazis. That I'll do.
Yeah, I could see no season 3 and Peacemaker's story continuing and maybe ending in Man of Tomorrow.
I'm really, really excited to see what the next step is. And this season, I thought this episode honestly was by far the best episode of this season, maybe the best episode of the entirety of the series of Peacemaker to me. I was blown away by it, especially this last act. The twist they pulled really worked for me. So I'm like so entirely turned on for like this last finale. I'm really ready for what this next episode is going to be.
And I think the difference I've heard people say with people who thought the episodes kind of dragged in the middle of the season, they said, oh, well, that's what a good storyteller does. They leave you wanting more. But to me, that's not you wanting more. That's you being frustrated with what you're watching. And to me, this episode, it's really good. And it's a short episode, but you're left wanting more in a good way.
I want to talk, if you're ready. Do you have anything more to say about that reveal or that big fight in the kitchen, anything like that? Because there's a lot in there.
I really loved when Keith comes in and they fight, and they have that whole sequence where he keeps flashing throughout his life and all the mistakes he's made, and the idea that he watched his brother die, and now he has to watch his brother die again, and now his brother is essentially being set up to be the ultimate villain in the finale. Maybe it's in some capacity in Superman or season 3, and I think that's really interesting, and I think that's a way that you would finish the show with the 3rd season with him as the main villain. Maybe it works that Vigilante stays, but it also would have been really. But I don't know what they would have done if he came with. I don't think.
Do you know for sure which Vigilante stayed? Because I'm not like 100% sold on which one's there.
Oh, I guess I assumed it was the. Oh,
that would be the assumption, but they played it a little cool. We don't necessarily know which Vig is where, right?
Oh, you're right. I guess that would be an interesting. They have to, but anything else to?
I want to mention that this very interesting point where Keith lives, right, and they're about to escape, and Keith is in critical condition, but he's gonna make it, but not if Harcourt has anything to say about it. Harcourt is ready to straight up execute this guy. She's like, sorry, you can't come after him. And she's gonna straight up shoot this dying, like this, not dying, but like this unarmed man laying in his blood. And it's a real cold moment for Harcourt. And it shows that she cares about Chris, but in a real violent and destructive way. So what did you think about this moment for her?
I think it just shows she is not a mentally healthy person. And Chris loves her, but maybe he should be careful because she is definitely not someone who is completely mentally healthy. I'm just really curious how all of this fits in to a season 3 or a Superman 2, because it seems pretty likely that at least Chris and like Harcourt would carry on into that movie.
I wanted to ask you about this last few minutes here because uh, Peacemaker gets arrested. Like he sells himself out, says the rest of the gang came to help me, including everybody surrounding me and everyone else, but not me. I was responsible for this. And he turns over the equipment, and then he gets arrested. And I thought it was interesting because they mentioned like, oh, your universe must be a utopia. Vigilante's like, uh, not exactly. It's kind of terrible, and we like to look at this. Oh, the Nazi universe, that would just be so unrecognizably shit compared to our own. But then he comes to our universe, and he's just arrested for the crime of what? Of having scientific equipment the government doesn't want him to have, and they're not even necessarily like police. They're just like this non-government organization thing, like that comes and arrests Peacemaker, and they cite this thing called the Treaty of Qatar. I don't know what that means, but I wonder if that'll come up in some point. What the hell is the Treaty of Qatar? How does that justify them just coming in and arresting this guy? But yeah, that final moment was like, yeah, you're pointing at the Nazi universe as the ultimate terrible DC universe, the worst thing ever. But maybe we're living in a fascist state of our own here if the police are able to just do this. Not even the police, just some government agents that showed up.
Yeah, and I haven't read the comics where they have Earth X, but I would guess in comic books they're like, look at how shocking and different this world is. But I liked how in the show it's like, well, maybe it's not like what really is. I mean, like Nazis did not win World War II, but there's still a lot of Nazis around, and there's still a lot of horrible stuff. They're like, oh, black people are free, but not really. And so I'm curious if they did do a thing where, like in Superman, both Earths like merge or something. Like, what would that world? If both worlds merge, what would that world look like?
Yeah, I'm really curious what the future of this universe looks like. I'm sure we'll see it in the finale for a few scenes, but like, is this season going to be the end of this? I theorized towards the beginning of the season that this show would end with the destruction of that doorway. We would essentially be ending this show with James Gunn telling us we're done with the multiverse. We're not doing that for at least like a decade. We're not messing with that. We're doing it for this one season, but we are definitively not doing it again. But now I'm starting to question myself. With one episode left, is that really going to be enough time to wrap up all of this?
If there was like 3 episodes left after this, I would maybe be like, okay, yeah, maybe this is the end of this. But I don't see how you wrap all this up in one. Because we gotta see Rick Flag. I don't know what has to happen with Rick Flag Jr. in the story, but we gotta see him one more time at least.
Yeah, he's someone I would love to see come make a turncoat, come back to the light. I want to see Rick Flag Jr. be a Nazi. I want to see him join the good guys. I want to see him come back to the DCEU, have him be the one person James Gunn brings back. Come on, James.
I mean, you accidentally said DCEU.
It's all the same. Bring him back to the DC universe. Yeah. Canonize Rick Flag Jr.
I wonder if there's a chance we don't see Rick Flag Sr. meet him like until maybe Superman 2.
Yeah, because I really would have thought we'd have that scene by now, but we haven't seen it. So
one more episode. It feels like there's so much more to happen, and we have one episode.
I mean, what do we have to see next week? We're gonna have to see
so much.
Rick Flag Jr. and Senior reunion, probably, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna have to see this like Monsters Inc. session of them going through all these doorways and seeing various monsters and that kind of stuff. That'll surely be a good amount of the screen time.
Finally got in the trailer the spider thing from the trailer for the season.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that we're gonna get, because that seems like it might just be like a shot. That's cool, but that's gonna be part of it. We still have to wrap up the Chris and the Harcourt romance. We're gonna have to figure that out. We're gonna have to, see what's going on with Vigilante. There's a lot to wrap up in one episode, so I just am very excited to see where it goes. And I do trust James Gunn to wrap all this stuff up. I don't know if it'll all be satisfying, but I think he will give them all answers in terms of like where these things are going. But yeah, do you have any predictions for next week? And after that, get into maybe some cameo predictions. But anything in terms of like plot or character, where you think this might go?
What would you predict in terms of runtime? Like, do you think it'll be over 50 minutes?
I don't know. I'm curious if the runtime is actually out there, because this episode was the shortest episode yet of the entire season.
And I asked mainly because James Gunn said it's longer or significantly longer than the other episodes. So I'm thinking like how much longer? Like, are we gonna get? We're not gonna get a Stranger Things level thing, but can we get like an hour 10 minutes? I'm really curious.
I really like to see that because yeah, these have been pretty quick, and I do feel like there's quite a lot to wrap up, especially if they, like James Gunn says, there's maybe not going to be season 3 of Peacemaker, but we'll see these characters again. So maybe some of the character arcs won't get wrapped up, but I'm assuming Peacemakers
Yeah,
probably will.
and we also got to see some sort of conclusion with the Harcourt on the other Earth. Like
That's true. I
that.
wonder if she'll have a change of heart. I'm really curious which of these characters, if any of them, can see the light. Especially maybe now that Keith has become like totally radicalized. Does he become like a vicious fascist dictator in this other universe? Does he become like totally cold-hearted and he's just like become the worst version of any version of himself? And this Harcourt seeing that change her mind, is seeing that change Rick Flag Jr.'s mind, is seeing this totally unhinged Nazi leader change a lot of these people's minds. I'm curious about that.
I really love the submersive. I really love the subversion of Augie and making him just not like this at all. Like, he basically implies that he doesn't like the things he's doing. Like, he might be fighting on the Nazi side, but he doesn't actually enjoy any of this. And the whole season, you're like scared. You're like, oh God, this Augie, is he going to be worse? And they keep like not having him show up. And like for that one episode, he doesn't show up at all. Like, oh, well, terrible things is he doing? And then it just turns out he's not.
Yeah, because when you know the Augie from the DCU, you're like, oh, the Nazi version of this guy's going to be like 10 times as worse. He's going to be like the worst guy of all time. And then it turns out that he's the total opposite of that. I really love that subversion.
Yeah,
Anything...
so I'd like to know, and there's still a mystery about him. What was Keith like? Was Keith fight like? What was Keith like? Is he full on a Nazi? We don't really know. He could have been. Maybe he wasn't, but now this will essentially make him one.
Yeah, that's what I was theorizing. He seemed to be not super radicalized. He was certainly, chasing at a bio like anybody else was, but he seems like he was, not as violent as his brother.
Yeah,
he seemed a little bit more calm.
That. I think he was just doing that because he was supposed to. It seems like that's what a lot of people are doing. So should we get into the crazy cameo predictions?
Yeah, I will say I thought this post-credit scene was easily the funniest one.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe the joke they went for. It was like this is a character who was in Superman, like, and he's making this joke about like pulling up Pornhub on his government computer with his like goon-faced drone guy sitting right behind him with a gun, and he's just like, yeah, well, I'm not stopping. You can sit there and watch if you want. And the guard's almost like into it too. The guard's like smiling and looking at him. I was like, what kind of universe is this? This is James Gunn's universe.
This is not the alternate universe. This is our DC universe.
Yeah,
I thought
really
that
gunning it.
Great, easily the funniest. Yeah, he's gunning it. That guard might be gunning it too. But yeah, that was easily the best after credit scene of the whole. Better than both after credit scenes of Superman. Honestly, no question.
Easily. Is it crazy if I say this is maybe the best part of the entire DCU so far? This episode? It
probably is. I mean, what is there to compare? Creature
Commandos, Superman.
I think so. I was really into this episode. It's funny because it's not directed by James Gunn.
No, that was what was strange. I was thinking this would be like the weaker of the three, right? Because I was like, oh, James Gunn's bookending this. This will be like a filler episode, getting us from point A to point B. And it very much was not that. And it feels like an interesting additional twist. Like last week, we thought it was a big twist, and I feel like this was the actual big twist. This was a true reveal of the season. So now we're actually getting to like what the post-twist Peacemaker is going to be like. So yeah, I'm really excited. And speaking of twists and cameos, we wanted to spend the last few minutes here just predicting, right? Like James Gunn has said there's at least one major cameo coming next week. I don't know what he means by major, but somebody's coming. So we saw in the trailer they're going to go exploring the multiverse a little bit. Will it be somebody from a different reality, or will it just be somebody that we know from the DCU? So I'll start with you, Ari. Do you have anybody you want to throw out there as maybe a possibility for a cameo in the finale here?
I don't know how likely it is, but if it was going to be a quick cameo and he really wanted to shock people, I don't know, have Henry Cavill. I don't think that's going to happen, but that would fulfill the big cameo. I honestly think the most likely for an actual big cameo is Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. And
That'd be really interesting.
maybe not, she's not the DCU's Harley Quinn, but she's Harley Quinn on Earth X. And she's like an actual like white supremacist or something. Now, the one I think is basically like 0% possible is like Jared Leto. Like that
Yeah,
that would
not happening.
that would never happen.
I wonder about Harley Quinn if we'll see Kaylee Cuoco's Harley Quinn. James Gunn gets along with that show pretty well. He was on the show, and that's the one of the very few things that they kept alive between the old DC and James Gunn's DC studios. So I wouldn't be surprised, especially if they're just doing a kind of bit in one of these doorways, right? They open it up and there's Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy for a scene or a shot. You know, that could be very fun. I don't know if she's going to straight up be the Harley Quinn for the DCU, but if I was going to place a bet on a Harley Quinn showing up, I'm placing my money on Kaylee Cuoco. While you're on the Margot Robbie side, I'll be saying Kaylee showing up.
And if it is Kaylee Cuoco, maybe she's not even live action. Like
that could be really cool. Open up a door and it's just animated.
Yeah, like it's just the animated Harley Quinn. I don't know if that would be big. I mean, I guess maybe that would be big.
Harley Quinn by herself, I think, is a big name, but
yeah.
What do you think about either of the lanterns? Do you think those qualify as big? I think one of the two of them will probably show up, one of those alternate lanterns from this upcoming lantern show. But do you think that'll be what he talks about, or do you think they'll show up at all?
Yeah, the way he's phrasing that, I don't think that would be. I mean, that I think is very possible. I don't know if it would exactly fit into this show perfectly, but I can definitely see that happening. Some crazier ones, like actually one of the Justice League from the DCU, like
Mr. Terrific still hasn't shown up.
The craziest possible cameo is if we saw on Earth X the DCU cast of the Justice League.
Oh, that would be crazy.
For one scene. They got all of them. I mean, to see Henry Cavill, because he said David Cornsweet isn't in the show, but he didn't say Henry Cavill is not in the show. So
yeah, let's go back and look at his phrasing, because he said Superman is not in the show. I wonder if Clark Kent will be in the show. Maybe we'll get a little subversion there. I don't know. I don't remember specifically, but I thought it was Superman.
Did he say Superman is in the show, or did he say David Cornsweet is in the show?
I don't remember the exact quote off the top of my head, but I'd be wondering if he played a little trick on us. I also wonder about any of the Creature Commandos showing up, a live-action version of a Creature Commando.
G.I. Robot killing Nazis.
Yeah, we've been talking about G.I. Robot as something that could show up, and he said maybe not in Peacemaker Season 2, but he said maybe, So maybe he is in Peacemaker Season 2. So I feel like if anything, if he's going to show up anywhere, it would be here, right? Maybe he's in the labor camp. Maybe he's part of the Sons of Liberty. Why would you not have an actual Nazi-killing robot show up in the Nazi universe? What do you think about Lobo, Jason Momoa, the pseudo co-antagonist, something like that, off of Supergirl? He'll be showing up in Supergirl. He was also in the first season of Peacemaker, but of course, as Aquaman, he was removed from the show. Is James Gunn going to give him an IOU by bringing back Momoa? But this time, as his new character, Lobo.
Now that would have been the ultimate super fun, helping them kill Nazis. If Earth X Aquaman showed up, because Jason Momoa is not white, and he helps them kill all these Nazis. Imagine he comes out of the drain of that pool and just like stabs them all. But yeah, I could see that setting up Supergirl. I don't know how likely it is. I think the most likely is Harley Quinn, more like Margot Robbie.
All right, you're saying Margot Robbie, Harley Quinn. You're gonna want me to lock that in for a prediction. I'll hold you to that.
I would really like it if the partner from Peacemaker Season 1 showed up.
That would be fun. Yeah, we mentioned that it was fun to see the male partner. I want to see his other partner, his female partner, who of course was an Asian woman, so she would not be around in the Nazi universe, at least not in like law enforcement. She might be somewhere else. So we'll see. Do you think Supergirl's going to show up?
Maybe. No, I don't know. It depends on where in the timeline that falls in, right? Like the events of the Supergirl movie could be happening at the same time.
Yeah, and the next movie, of course, is Supergirl, I believe, right? It was Clayface
Yeah,
before
that's
that.
the next movie. Supergirl comes out in, I believe, June. Clayface is like October, I think.
So I would wonder if they're going to want to set up Supergirl here. I think Supergirl or a Lantern. I don't know if it would be Supergirl herself, but I feel like they're going to want to set up the next step in the project, right? It wouldn't really make sense to set up like some random character. Maybe we set up Waller or like what the next TV show in this kind of Peacemaker realm is going to be. But I'm personally leaning towards one of the Lanterns showing up. And I think in James Gunn's mind, that's a big, like a Jon Stewart shows up. That's a big deal. People love Jon Stewart. That would be a big deal if he showed up in the show, right? And I think that would count as a pretty big cameo, especially with that show on the horizon. I think it would make sense to throw them in here, but I'm betting on a Lantern. I'm also praying for a Kaylee Cuoco Harley Quinn. That's an easy one to throw in there for, even like you said, an animated shot. You don't gotta even film her in costume or anything like that. Just like a outtake from Harley Quinn. Do a little scene where they recognize what's going on or something like that. That's my prediction. I'm also praying for Polka Dot Man. That would be my dream come true right there. Bring him back.
Have him kill a bunch of Nazis.
That would be great. Maybe instead of polka dots, it's all just a bunch of swastikas everywhere around his whole body.
Well, he is played by a Jewish actor, so he could be in one of the camps, and he helps free all of them by making like 1,billion polka dots. I think we will see David S. Melchin back at some point, whether it's that role or a different role.
I really hope so. That would be a lot of fun.
He's the DCU Batman.
Now that would be crazy.
Any other predictions?
I'm really not sure. I'm excited about this episode, though. This new episode this week really kind of, got me excited for the finale, and it put me in a spot I wasn't expecting to be on. I thought it was just going to be a pretty basic, like, here's the Nazis, and then, they're going to fight them all. Yeah, Will is in this chat saying, are we going to see a GI Robot? I definitely am hoping for GI Robot. Like we said, it's a perfect spot for him. It's a Nazi universe. Let's have the Nazi killing robot show up and fight some Nazis, right?
Didn't he get like a new upgraded suit at the end of Creature Commandos?
And even if it's not that GI Robot, maybe they build another GI Robot in this universe, or maybe this a GI Robot in this reality. I really love this GI Robot. Maybe that's my number 3.
What if maybe in this world he's called DEI Robot?
That would be really fun.
But
plot-wise predictions, I'm leaning towards Peacemaker does not die, but he gives up the Peacemaker mantle. He just becomes Chris now, and he's trying to navigate the world as not being Peacemaker. And we'll see him again in something else. He'll probably don the mantle again at some point, but that could be James Gunn's way of saying, look, he's not Peacemaker anymore, so there's not going to be a 3rd season of Peacemaker. Maybe there will be, but I hope there is. I really don't want this to be the series finale. I noted that the trailer said season finale, so there's not saying series finale of Peacemaker. But
but if it is, they wouldn't reveal that until it happens.
Yeah, I hope it's not. But yeah, I really am excited to see how much they can actually wrap up. We talked about how there's a lot hanging here, and I expect there to be a lot left over. And we're still waiting on that Superman setup. We've gotten hits of it here and there, but I'm not walking out of this saying I know what's happening now. So I'm wondering if we'll get that.
My main prediction is we are not done with Earth X in this, because it's just too much to wrap up. And one thing he says, it directly sets up Superman 2 in the direction that DCU is going. And so it would be interesting to start the DCU with such a huge event like the Nazi Earth colliding. It would be an interesting direction to take it, especially since Lex Luthor will also be a protagonist most likely in that movie. So to see them team up against, like, he hates superheroes, he hates anyone with powers. How does he feel about like actual white supremacist Nazis with superpowers? Like, how does he feel about Nazi Superman?
James Gunn mentioned during the marketing of Superman, somebody asked him, they said, so during the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, you said the main character was Rocket. We ultimately ended up following Rocket's journey from beginning to middle to end, and he was kind of the centerpiece of your trilogy. Is there a centerpiece of the DCU, and have we seen them yet? And James Gunn says, there is a centerpiece. You have seen them, and they're probably not someone you thought was going to be the centerpiece.
Yeah, it's Lex Luthor.
After this episode, I wonder if it's Keith.
Oh.
I wonder if Keith ultimately becomes the main antagonist for at least this first run, this first phase, this Gods and Monsters kind of phase.
Maybe I think it would make a lot more sense instead of like actual Nazi Superman to be the main villain, that it's Keith.
A character you never would have expected, that we had seen already because he was in Peacemaker season 1. So we had seen him previously. And I think it's someone you would never have thought, but it's someone that makes sense. So totally, this might have been a character in the comics that he pulled from something, but a very, very, very obscure comic book character that James Gunn was just like, I'm going to make him this under my universe. It's not going to be Lex Luthor. It's not going to be Supergirl. It's going to be Keith, the brother of Peacemaker who died 20 years ago.
I think he makes a lot more sense than Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor, you can flesh him out, you can humanize him, but you don't, he is a supervillain, and you want to keep that going for a while.
And the ultimate contemplation of, can Keith see the light? Can Keith be a good person? Can Keith realize the error of his ways? That could be the emotional core of this arc, and seeing whether or not he makes the right or the wrong choice in almost like a Star Wars level operatic way could be really cool. The entire fate of 2 realities could hinge on it. What if that's, this Earth X versus our Earth becomes the plot that drives this era of the DCU?
The irony that the actor who plays Keith is essentially Pa Kent in Brightburn is just unbelievable. Do you think we could see that as a cameo in the multiverse? Is him playing his character from Brightburn?
I would have to check. I'm not totally sure. Brightburn is a Warner Brothers property, but it would be a fun connection.
They referenced Spider-Man in the last episode, so
that's true. But they didn't show Spider-Man. Spider-Man didn't show up.
yeah,
on the screen.
That's true. That's true.
I'm so excited, though. It's going to be a fun next week. I'm sure we'll have a lot more to talk about. And even in this episode, which I already had a lot to talk about, but it was almost like a huge stage setter and twisting things you didn't expect to see coming. So I'm really excited. Now that they've got us in this place for whatever this finale is going to be, they can do so much with it. And all these characters at such an interesting point where is Rick Flag Sr. going to end up by the end of the season? He's right on the edge of becoming a radicalized anti-mutant hater, or becoming someone who has empathy for these metahumans. What way is he going to go? And are we going to see Lex Luthor again? Maybe we will. I really can't wait. Are you ready for next week, Ari? How are you feeling? Feeling hyped?
I'm definitely ready for next week. I can't wait to see what happens with Earth X. I just can't wait to see how they set up Superman and how they wrap up all this, and if they do wrap up all this.
Yeah, I really am very excited. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys liked the episode as much as I liked the episode. I know I liked it more than Ari did, but he's still very, very positive on it. So let us know in the comments what you guys saw, and especially let us know who you think's showing up. We went on for a little bit about who we think might pop up cameo-wise. So if you have any good cameos you weren't expecting, if you're a DC aficionado and you're like, oh, this character from the Golden Age who was in one panel, they're definitely coming in next episode. I'm calling it now. Call your shot. Get those internet points right now. Go down there, take your screenshot, so when they show up, you can say, I knew it. I called it. I call it on. Here's the thing. Here's the screenshot to prove it. So let us know in the comments what you thought. We have a lot going on the channel. We have an awards roundtable coming up. We're going to talk about one belt after another and the awards potential there. Smashing Machine just dropped. Ari either has a review on the channel now or is going to have one up momentarily. So if you want to see Smashing Machine thoughts, is Dwayne Johnson really going to get that Oscar? Is he going for that golden boy, Ari? Don't tell me now, but tell me in that review if he's got it. But I can't wait to see what you thought of that movie. Really anticipated film from you. We have a lot of reviews coming up. Like I said, it's Halloween season, so we're going to have some spooky series out there as well. So check out the channel for Stranger Things reviews, all kinds of different movie reviews throughout the season. So if you like movies and TV, you should check out Here's the Thing. Get subscribed if you want to see more of us. Hit like if you liked us. And if you didn't like us, eat peace, assholes.